My boyfriend and I were living in a pretty nice apartment. This was back in 2009. It was in a good location for us, but was too expensive because my boyfriend had just lost his job when the economy crashed, and I was finishing up dental hygiene school. So money was tight, and the rent was coming due. I had never sold anything before on Craigslist. It always seemed like way too much of a hassle. But we were getting desperate as the end of the month got closer, so I thought, why not? I ended up selling a bunch of old stuff. I didn't get much money for everything, though, because I went for the first not stupid offer that came my way. That's how I learned that there are a lot of lowballers on Craigslist who offer pennies on the dollar to people like me who need cash fast, or they're just cheap and looking for a deal. Anyway, my boyfriend saw how good I was doing, so he suggested that we sell his guitar. He never used it anymore, and like he said, it's just gathering dust. It was worth $1,000 new, and he'd barely touched it, so we asked for $700 firm. And I put, "No lowballers, first come, first served," in the ad. I got a couple of nibbles later that day. I texted them to my boyfriend, and he asked if I could handle it since he had a job interview that afternoon. "Sure," I texted back. So I emailed both people and told them I'd be home all day with the guitar, and they could drop by whenever they wanted to take a look. I reminded them about the price and that I wouldn't hold it for anyone, since I had other people interested. I also mentioned that it was my boyfriend's guitar and that I didn't know anything about musical instruments. I got a reply from someone with the email leadguitarlady123 or something like that, who wanted to come right over. She claimed to have cash in hand and that the pictures of the guitar looked great. We replied to each other with a few other emails since Guitar Lady had some other questions, like if she could try the guitar, stuff like that. I told her she could, and she seemed satisfied with my other answers and asked for my address. I gave it to her, and she said that she'd be over in about an hour, and she didn't live too far. So I waited and puttered around, cleaning up the apartment, surfing Craigslist. About 90 minutes passed, and I figured that the buyer probably had second thoughts. I hadn't gotten any other replies, so I was a little bummed. Finally, I heard a knock. I opened the door, and there was a scruffy-looking guy in jeans wearing a baggy windbreaker. It was kind of odd because it was summer, and we lived in an area that was not only hot, but got really humid as well. "May I help you?" I asked. "I'm here to look at the guitar," he said. He seemed kind of on edge, but I could understand that. I was pretty nervous myself with the first couple of transactions I did on Craigslist. I was going to ask him, "You're the guitar lady?" but I decided not to. I felt kind of uncomfortable and wanted to just shut the door because of the way he was acting. It felt really weird, but he was already standing in the doorway and we did want to sell the guitar. So I invited him in and pointed to the guitar in the living room. "The stand comes with it and is included in the price," I said as he walked in and I closed the door. He mumbled something about it being a nice guitar and looked as good as the pictures. He walked over to the middle of the living room and with his hands in his pockets asked if he could try it. "Sure," I said, a little too brightly. So he played a few chords and part of some rock songs that I have to say he was really good, like he could be in a band. I was going to say so when he looked up and said, "I'll give you $100 for it." I told him that like the ad said, my boyfriend wouldn't go lower than $700. He took a deep breath, still holding the guitar, and stammered and just stared at me, his eyes blazing, mouth hanging open, and he started shaking. I took a step backwards, toward the door. He looked like he wanted to hit me. We both just stood there for a moment. Finally, he spoke up again. "Nobody pays full price on Craigslist, and I only brought $100. That's my final word. If you want, you can wait outside. My boyfriend will be coming home in a few minutes, and you can talk to him. It's his guitar." The truth was, I didn't know when he'd be done with his interview, but I wanted this crazy guy out of the apartment. I wanted to scream at him, to get out, but I was afraid and didn't want to push him over the edge. "But I want the guitar," he suddenly yelled. I jumped back startled and stumbled against the apartment door. I almost fell down. He was jumping around and screaming like a little kid, throwing a temper tantrum. It would have been funny if we hadn't been alone together and if he wasn't a grown man. I just stood there, frozen. Then I noticed that his jacket had ridden up and he was carrying a huge hunting knife stuck in his belt behind his back. That was when I opened the door and ran out of the apartment. I ran through the apartment complex and stopped once just to get a hold of myself. I hid behind a tree and wanted to call 911, but that's when I realized I left my phone back in the apartment. Even though I was afraid, I got my nerve back and cautiously went back to the apartment. The door was still open, but I didn't see him inside. I peeked through the windows, but with the closed blinds and with the darkness inside, I couldn't see anything. I crept up to the door and said, "Hello?" in a loud voice. Nothing but silence. I stuck my head in through the door and looked around. Didn't see the guy. I was surprised to see the guitar was there, sitting on the stand. "Hello?" I asked again. I grabbed the baseball bat that my boyfriend kept behind the front door and carefully made my way through the apartment. I was breathing hard, like I'd just finished sprinting. I pushed each door open, hard, with the bat held high, ready to smash the guy if he was hiding in the bedroom. Nothing. The apartment was empty. The last room in the place was the bathroom. Everything looked normal, except the toilet seat was up, and someone had taken one of my lipsticks and written, "Screw you," in heavy, angry letters across the mirror. I went back out, locked the front door, and spent the next hour going through the place, making sure nothing was missing. Nothing was. I thought about calling the police, but decided against it. Finally, my boyfriend came home. He said that the interview seemed to go well and asked about the guitar. I was about to tell him, but it all suddenly seemed just too exhausting. And I felt like an idiot, so I said, "Oh, there was one guy, but he never showed up." I took the Craigslist ad down later that night and have never tried to sell anything online again.